Hi, everyone. We're going to talk about the third myth today, and that is grieve alone. And I want to let you know that there is a Florida thunderstorm going on out here today. So if you hear a big bang, that's what's going on. So let's talk about grieving alone. So um, this myth, again, is something that we're taught as we grow up. And although it's tempting to rank all of these six myths, in their order of importance, they really are all damaging in their own way. So whether it's the first two, don't feel bad or replace the loss, this is just a third in a litany of ways that we've learned to bypass grief. It's not necessarily the worst. They're all damaging in their own way. And I've heard a lot of people that I've worked with talk about any one of these, but for sure, these myths are involved in the way every one of us experiences grief. No matter how deep that grief is or how mild it might be. Some grief events are not as heavy as others, but they're still very important to the person experiencing them, and they need to be worked through. So this one is grieve alone. And, grieving people do tend to isolate. If you've experienced even a small loss, this is true. You might remember maybe how something went wrong at work. Maybe you lost a promotion, or maybe you had a friend that decided to walk away. It could be any number of things. And you realize you might talk to somebody about it, but after a period of time, people don't really want to hear about it anymore, even if you're still carrying that as a deep event for you. So you can just kind of sense, we have an idea that people are kind of over listening to us. And although this kind of grieving alone and this idea that we should isolate is a major problem for grieving people, it's not a natural tendency. It's actually a learned behavior that starts in childhood. So, think about it this way. What is one of the first things that you want to do when you have good news? Almost everybody's answer is you want to share it. You want to share it with a friend, with your spouse, maybe with your parents or your kids. And it's just something that's natural that you want to share it. And whether you realize it or not, that's also your natural tendency when something difficult happens. But we're so conditioned from childhood not to share these things, that we have to kind of keep it to ourselves. We have to, do silly things like be strong and, just get over it. Um, it's just not a helpful strategy at all. And it's the very same concept. You've heard that line before, laugh and the whole world laughs with you, cry and you cry alone. Or things like, if you're going to cry, go to your room, or, don't burden others with your problems. You should be putting positivity into the world. you know this all of this denies our natural human tendency to need to grieve and work through the things that have been hurtful for us. But the reality is that you can't change the habits of the world, but you can determine who the safe, reliable people in your life are. And as previously mentioned, it's often not the ones that you think are going to be there for you. I've talked about this in another video. It may not be the family members that you thought would be there. Or if they are, maybe they're not there in the way that you thought they would be. Maybe they don't acknowledge, for instance, if you have the death of a child, they may not acknowledge that date every year, or the date of their birthday. But this is very common, but it doesn't mean they don't care. So the recommendation is for you to identify someone who's close to you, who that you trust, that you can talk to about, you can open your heart, and that that they'll be there for you. And it might be a family member, it might not. It might just be a good friend, or it might even be an acquaintance. Sometimes our, people that we randomly meet can relate to this kind of thing even better than people that we know. But it's important to know that these are natural, powerful emotions, and that they do deserve to be expressed. But trust in a relationship is important, and you want to be sharing with someone that you can trust, that can hold that space for you. So support groups are good for this. If they're led by skilled facilitators, they can be very helpful. Sometimes excuse me, sometimes if you are in a support group, they can end up being a little bit counterproductive, because you're never talking about steps that help you move forward, and you're only talking about, you're constantly I mean, this can go on for months. Just, I know people who've left grief groups because of this. Yes, it's super important to share, but at some point we do all have to make the commitment to take certain steps to facilitate our healing. And there are actual steps and appropriate tools that you can take to that you can utilize to move forward. So this is what I teach in the grief recovery method. It's a well thought out, well planned method with particular steps that you take to work through the grief process. It's been around for more than 40 years. It's actually evidence-based, which means it has university level studies that have been done on it to show its efficacy. So that's just an example of a tool that can be used. It's something that I've used with great benefit for my clients. So I hope you find this helpful, if in no other way, just that you can relate to it and say, oh my gosh, yes, I get it. I thought I was the only one, but yes, this is so difficult for me. Sometimes just knowing that other people go through this is really helpful to you as well. So next time we are going to talk about one that's really common. It's the fourth myth, and I actually think this one is probably the one that people hear most often, and it's time heals all wounds, and it's probably the one that creates the most issues for people, and it's super untrue. All right, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.